it will ask, tell you that recording is in progress. Great. So we've got email addresses in the chat. So yeah, thank you for joining us this morning. So I'm going to just talk for a few minutes about this opportunity and give it a bit of context as well. And then really just hand over to all of you if you have questions or comments or queries. So the Creative Health City is an idea that really actually grew out of work in Manchester. So it was launched, a version of this was launched in Manchester last year, where Manchester Council, Manchester University, their kind of integrated care system colleagues, so their NHS and kind of health provider colleagues, banded together and worked to create a strategy for Manchester, which embodies creative health. So, you know, working with really brilliant people like Clive Parkinson, who wrote The Social Glue, which is an amazing document and piece of research and writing to look at. It really kind of explores how culture and health can work together to address health inequalities in a population with a community, not doing to the community, but working with that community. So Manchester took this step, this really exciting step, led by Julie McCarthy in Greater Manchester Council, who's an incredible woman, look her up, and published their sort of creative health strategy for the city, which included, you know, their approach was very much looking at different sort of work streams that needed developing. So, you know, leadership in creative health, you know, work pipeline, you know, how do we get people trained into this? Is it through academic routes? Is it through, you know, training on the job? How do we mobilize our VCSE sector? How do we mobilize cultural organizations to think about health and work in those ways? Where are the cold spots? Where in Manchester is this work happening really well? And where does it need more support and funding and rigor and all of this kind of stuff? So their report launched in November, and lots of colleagues from London were up there, including the Arts Council, including the GLA, and so on and so forth, and lots of sector colleagues like ourselves at London Arts and Health. And that kind of really germinated, I guess, an idea of what would be a version of this for London. You know, even, you know, I could get very kind of meta and philosophical about this, like, oh, should we even be doing this? And I don't really know what the answer is. But what seems apparent is that there's this kind of tipping point happening in creative health. If you're kind of interested in that field, in that sector, there's lots of things converging at the same time, including things like, you know, the Arts Council's creative health portfolio has grown. So in the last Arts Council round, there seems to be lots more organizations that, you know, either have this work at their core or are really including strands of kind of health work in their work with communities, in how they're, you know, how they're running their organizations. There seems to be more kind of appetite and awareness within our health colleagues as well. So the National Centre for Creative Health, for example, has just funded with the Arts Council, I think there's, I want to say 9 roles, that's probably not right, but about between 6 and 9 roles that are basically culture people who have gone into integrated care boards. So they're sitting kind of with senior NHS execs, listening basically to what are the challenges, like, you know, what are you really struggling with, which we probably all know, but what are you struggling with in your new kind of strategies? And where does culture, where does the VCSE sector sit within that, and within that culture specifically, you know, how might culture and health work more closely at a community kind of level? There also seems to just be, even though, you know, I work in the charity sector, like funding is really hard, but there's more pots, there's more kind of interest, there's more like, you know, stuff galvanizing around these threads. So we've seen over the last year, 2 years, there's this kind of tipping point occurring. So there is an appetite, I think, in London to think through some of the challenges, some of the opportunities that, you know, thinking through this lens of being a creative health city might generate, and also some of the problems that it might pose. And that's what we're really interested in kind of unpicking in this one-day event. So I'll talk a bit about the call out in a second, but the event is going to happen on the 27th of November. And the title is the London Creative Health City, Building It Together. The event is funded by the GLA and the Arts Council, and London Arts and Health have been procured as the kind of project manager of the event. So we will be putting in place the event, bringing together partners, and also what our kind of main thrust, our main drive was around how do we curate conversations or an agenda that really comes from the sector. So it's not us choosing, it's not the Arts Council choosing, it's not public health choosing, it's not the GLA choosing, it's it's a bit more democratic than that. We're inviting people to come with their questions, their conversations, their problems, their solutions, their challenges to all of us as a kind of creative health sector as to how we build and how we make manifest some of the excellent work that is happening in London. And we know that London is enormous. We have 5 ICS regions, which are illustrated in our lovely blue logo that's on the website. There's lots of stuff that's working really well. There's lots of stuff that isn't working well. There's bits that are joined up. There are bits that aren't joined up, all of this stuff, because London is massive and we can't solve all of it. But we're interested in, I guess, challenging systems, doing a bit of dream weaving, a bit of kind of imagining, and bringing together hopefully around 300 colleagues in the room and 50 colleagues on Zoom to explore some of these thoughts, these ideas, these questions, these provocations. So if you're attending in person, it will be a whole day at Battersea Arts Centre. Obviously, it's free to attend. You will be provided with some lunch and lots of cups of tea, and there will be mechanisms throughout the day. So the morning will be curated. So from this call out, we will have around 12 sessions that are essentially curated and chosen by an advisory panel, which I can talk a little bit more about in a second. And then in the afternoon, the sessions will be open for the delegates to choose. So you as the audience, as the attendees, can make proposals, and we're kind of borrowing a bit from open space technology and some ideas like that. So there will be a kind of community board mechanism. You can propose questions, you can challenge, you can vote with your feet, you can listen in a circle, you can walk away, all of those kind of things. So we want the day to feel held, but also quite fluid for everybody to air what they need to air and talk about the issues and the things and whatever they want to discuss. So in terms of the call out, it runs till the 12th of October. We have a very sort of simple application form, which will ask you for a few details, like your name and your email address and where you live in London. And I've had already a few questions about this, people who are really enthusiastic and really want to join, but aren't from London or aren't really practicing or working in London. And it's always tricky because you don't want to inhabit that space where it's London thinks it's the best and it's so great, but this is funded by Londoners' money. This is funded by the GLA. This is funded by Arts Council London, from managed funds. So we're really, really interested in conversations that really curate around what is it that Londoners, whatever a Londoner is, but what they're experiencing in terms of culture and health, and some of their ideas and thoughts. So that is kind of one of the prerequisites, that you are living and working in London. We also have some priority boroughs, and these are Arts Council priority boroughs, where the Arts Council is trying to invest and develop infrastructure, support practitioners, support organizations in these boroughs. And there's lots of information on the Arts Council's website as to why there are, why these 5 boroughs have been chosen in London. So we will look for around 3 conversations at least that are, from organizations, practitioners, health practitioners, whoever you might be, that come from the priority boroughs. And then really in the form, it just asks you about your conversation starter. So conversation starter is also a loose word. I wrote the copy for this. So I went back and forth with all my colleagues, the advisory panel, how do we talk about this? How do we make this an invitation that feels clear and succinct, but also not didactic, like, oh, it has to just be that everyone's sitting in a circle listening to someone talking, because, you know, that's not right. So really it's up to you. You know, in terms of your conversation starter, obviously we're going to be in the hall at Battersea Arts Centre. It needs to be quite lo-fi. There's not going to be tons of tech support. You know, you're not necessarily going to be able to even have like a screen. You might be able to do a couple of things like that. But this is really about how you might connect and engage with a group of people. You might want to bring in elements of your creative practice. You might, you know, you might not be a creative practitioner, you might be a health provider. You might want to do something that involves writing or drawing, or moving in a space. It doesn't have to just be a back and forth conversation. So really that's up to interpretation. So that's probably not very helpful. That's a bit loose, but it really is up to you. And we welcome like any kind of imagining or you know, reinvention of what conversation might be. And other things that we can offer as well, obviously support for accessibility. So if you are applying or you're sharing this opportunity with anyone that you know and they need really specific support to be in that space, we can provide that. And there's a space on the form to write in what your needs are. And also this opportunity finally is paid. So let me just make sure I'm giving the information correctly. Sorry, bear with me. My cold is, here we go. No, I'm sorry, everyone. My cold is making my brain not like function. Here we go. So there's a fee. If you're holding your conversation by yourself, it's £125 for an hour. So we expect this for the call out. We expect these kind of conversation starters hopefully to last for about an hour. It won't be longer than an hour. If it's a bit shorter, that's absolutely fine. If it kind of ends, that's fine, but it won't be longer than an hour. Or if you're applying as a pair, there's a fee of £150. So there's a bit extra to recognise that there's two of you working for that fee. Yeah, I'm going to stop talking at you all now and just open this up a bit if anybody has any kind of questions or queries at this stage. If you want to type questions in the chat box as well, and then I can talk through the answer, that's also absolutely fine.
Amelia's put a question in the
Oh, here we go.
chat. Yeah.
Terms of eligibility, what that student's studying in London, not in London. Yeah, that's a really good question, Amelia. I mean, let me come back to you on that. I would say, hi, good morning, Juliet, welcome.
Good morning, hi. Sorry for the late
Oh no, don't worry at all. Did you catch any of that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, not to worry at all. Yeah, the captions are on if you want captioning. I was just kind of giving a bit of a flavour and an overview of the event and the call out. And then we're just kind of having Q&A now. So yeah, Amelia, I mean, I would say, well, you're studying in London, you're like living in London right now, I would say, so that's fine. I can clarify that though as well with my colleagues. I guess like what we've had a couple of queries around are, you know, people who are from a completely different city. So I think I had a query from someone who like lives and works in Liverpool, and obviously there's lots of similarities. That's a big city. They're like maybe wrestling with some of these concepts as well, but they're not working and practicing in London at the moment. So that would be like a bit borderline. But Amelia, you are studying in London and living in London now, so I think that's fine. But I'll double check as well. Juliet, do you want to tell us actually quickly a bit about yourself?
Absolutely, thank you. I think, is everyone frozen? No, I think Alison froze a little bit. Hi, so I'm Juliet. I run a CIC community interest company called Stour Trust. We're based in Tower Hamlets, sort of on the border between Newham and Redbridge. And we do a couple of things. One is we offer affordable workspace and studios to artists, but also we connect very closely with underrepresented groups, particularly refugees and trafficked individuals, and we utilize creative practice and arts to really, look at how we can support their health. And I come from a refugee background myself, and it's just that link between, how do we support communities that are from, different backgrounds to, get acquainted with this country, but also, connect with some of the experiences that they've had. And we're also part of the London Stakeholder Network, which is a research program in Newham with Newham Council, looking at mental health and our practice essentially. So we train up citizen scientists who are from that background to embed themselves into the research process on health and well-being in the boroughs. So that's a little bit about what we do. So
Wow.
one is sort of more strategic and the other is more sort of delivery.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's Stour Trust. And
that sounds amazing. And yeah, like I mean, yeah, just absolutely fascinating, and absolutely the kinds of conversation actually should be captured in this call out. So again, I know everyone's kind of here as their own kind of research or organization, but there could, what we also are really passionate about, no worries, Andrew, for this call out is how we mobilize, beneficiary voices, patient voices, participant voices, whatever kind of language you use. And we've had we've had a few applications along those lines already. So like an organization that we work a lot with is Social Action for Health. I don't know if you've come across them, Juliet.
Yes.
So it's that very much that model of actually, like, we're not the experts in health, and what we're really interested in, what the GLA and Arts Council is like, mobilizing those different voices, those voices of lived experience, different experiences. So what you're describing would sound so relevant and so fantastic for people to kind of engage in understanding not only your organization, but the sort of practice and research and the ways that you're kind of working in your geographical area. And I know there's like amazing stuff happening in Newham and Tower Ham as well. Like we're based in Tower Hamlets actually.
So
like, yeah. So that sounds
connect.
Definitely. So that sounds like fabulous, and I really urge you to apply.
Fantastic. And one of the things that we're really interested of late is that for almost 10 to 15 years we've been doing this work, and one of the things that we were always sort of really keen to be sensitive about is sort of people who have chronic illnesses, for example. So for myself, I don't have migraines and arthritis, and sort of how that health impacts your, a potential to be a citizen, but also to be someone who can contribute to society, and what are the frameworks and sort of policies that sort of support that, but also, just putting that into the conversation that where, if someone does have, a chronic illness, the role that arts and the tools that arts and art practice can support that well-being to kind of be more, more active as a citizen.
Yeah, oh my
but that's
God.
just yeah.
So I really hear that actually. That also, I think, really chimes with the event, because some of the work that London Arts and Health, what we've been doing over the through the pandemic really, and everything changed in the pandemic, and the GLA and Arts Council in London is exploring those ideas. So health, like, I think, when you think about health and health systems, people would describe, if you ask them like, what does that mean? It's like, well, when you go to the doctor or when you turn up at A&E, but actually like health is like 99% of all the other stuff, where you're just at home or you're in your community, or, you know, when you're just living your life basically. And the healthy creative health city, I guess we're exploring like capturing that as a concept, that actually there are really expert practitioners, health providers, organizations, groups of people who live and understand, like, you know, these ideas every day, and that can be really activated and supported locally in appropriate ways. And that's really exciting, and that already happens in loads of places. Like there's brilliant places like Bromley by Bow or St Margaret's House, or the Queen's Theatre in Havering, where there's the kind of networks of you know, referrals happening and supporting, like thinking through the lens of health and culture. So it's really exciting at this event, because what we sort of predict is that that will be manifested. It's not necessarily about reinventing or making a new system, or, you know, it's manifesting where, you know, organizations like yourself are doing that so well, and revealing that and sharing like how you're doing that, and you know, having that kind of, yeah, that conversation, and also a really good opportunity for people, you know, policymakers, funders, to listen and like hear that work as well. Yeah, I just wanted to caveat that I've got a really streaming cold, Juliet. So like my head's a bit like cotton wool. So I might be a bit like rambling this morning. It's also Monday morning. I don't know why I chose to do this on a Monday morning. So does anybody else have like questions or queries? They can be really like, you know, I don't understand why you've written this on the form, or, you know, what, or yeah, anything else. Leon, you've come back on camera. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so I was thinking of coming of suggesting something that is a practical activity as part of generating a conversation. But is this more about, you know, because I can do that as an individual practitioner with lived experience, that's one thing. But because we're looking, but I'm just wondering if the Addiction Recovery Arts Network is better to come, like me and Alex, the other editor, kind of thing, to, because that's about, you know, communities of people in recovery, and this idea about recovery cafes and things. That's more kind of pure conversation that's about arts and health and policy and those kinds of things. So yeah, so I'm not sure which way to angle that. I'm being a bit vague, but
no, I completely get your question. No, that so makes sense, because it's really difficult, isn't it? And like thinking through the structure of this conference, which is keeping me up at night. It's like that thing of, we could have like a week where everybody comes every single day and like shares their practice, basically, especially if you sit more in the culture kind of sphere. And that would be amazing, and like just brilliant and fascinating and empowering and all those things. But I think what we decided is what's more useful, and useful is like a really loaded word, but what's more strategic, I guess, this tipping point is the second thing you described. So how do you make manifest, if you're thinking through the lens of a creative health city? And again, I'm not saying that it exists, or you know, it's absolutely decided like London's a creative health city now and you're all part of it, and like you've got to ladder up to these 26 million things. It's like not that at all. It's a dialogic process, but it's how. So for example, describing recovery cafes, that is a beautiful mechanism where people can feel supported and well, and that is, I think, more interesting to put into the microscope of the day than just sharing your practice, which is also interesting. But the mechanism of the cafe and like how you're building that community of practice in the magazine, and like the storytelling around that, is that to me feels like you're answering the kind of call out more succinctly. Does that make sense? I know I'm like using loads of like,
and that's because when I looked a bit deeper into the guidance the other day, I thought, it's going to be that, but I just wanted to check that out. That's cool. That's
but that doesn't mean that you as a practitioner won't like connect to a whole host of really useful and interesting people on the day. Like that's also going to happen. But I think for the curated conversations, we're really looking for those kind of real, you know, and I'm not also saying that we're going to curate like 12 things that are like, this is all amazing and it's all sorted out and it's all wonderful. It's not that either. It's like, this is really tricky. And we're like working with our health colleagues, we're dismantling systems, we're reimagining things, we're like trying to, it's like a tussle, isn't it? So it doesn't have to be that it's just all wrapped up in a bow and it's like a solution. It's a conversation, it's dialogic. So we really welcome that as well, if that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Really does anybody else have like a question or they want to share? It doesn't have to be a question, it can be a sharing, amusing.
Can I ask a very simple sort of technical question? We tend to work with a lot of people who are both artists and also academics. They're either staff or they can be PhD students. Now, I'm guessing sort of in terms of the application process, I'm guessing having those two actors.
Oh, Andrew, you froze. Oh, I'm sorry, Andrew, you froze on the second part of your question.
Oh, where you've got people who are basically artists and academics. So can you hear me now? Because typically I'm having repairs done on my internet today. Can you believe it? And you know, is there any reason why they need to opt for one hat rather than the other, or is it quite good for people to be both artists and academics, whether they're staff or PhD students? I mean, I think it is because they probably have a rounded view. But
oh yeah, like, and also everybody wears like 26 hats, right?
Yeah.
there's you know, I think you know, when we put the call out together, we wrote down a kind of list of, you know, trying to be like catch-all, like who might you be like if you're applying to this. So it's kind of helpful, but also not limited to, I suppose. So it might be that you have lived experience. You might be GP, a social worker, a nurse, an OT, a health worker. You might be a social prescriber. You might be an artist practitioner. You might be an academic or a researcher, or kind of straddling that as well. You might be from a community that's working through creative health. You know, we're also really interested. We've got lots of policymakers and funders as well. Hopefully you're coming, because it's really important to be in the rooms with everybody who is, you know, making and doing this stuff. So I think that's fine. Like everybody wears lots of hats. Hopefully in the form there is space to explain a bit of that, and we actually ask a question which is a bit more like, you know, you've told us about your conversation and what you need, but now tell us about yourself, because all of us have different lived experiences. All of us work in different organizations, collaborate in different ways, so that's absolutely fine. The other thing, because I know I've got quite a few academic colleagues on this call, the other thing is, and actually even within your organizations, we will need lots of volunteers. So if you know a person who might be just interested in attending and volunteering, and again, like you know, we have a really good volunteers agreement. It's not a kind of a situation where we're just like taking people's labor, but it's about, you know, we have volunteers, lots of need basically for volunteers. So particularly if you've got like students or community members who might be interested in like just being a bit more deep in this process and in this event, please just contact us, because we desperately need that as well. So that might be a different way to be involved. Andrew, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, brilliantly.
Is there any other questions or thoughts? Because I'm, you know, worried about people's caffeination levels, and and it is Monday. So yeah, maybe just have a second to think if there's anything else. I would say that also, you know, if application forms are not your thing, or, you know, people that you're sharing this with, they can record audio, they can record a video, they can write an email. If you would rather that someone just speaks to me on Zoom and tells me about their idea and I can try and capture it, I can just record the Zoom or something, all of that is completely fine, because application forms are just generally not great. And but there also has to be a mechanism to collect the ideas. But if that's not your bag, just let us know, basically. Does everybody feel satisfied, or are there any like burning other questions?
Would there be, sorry, I have one question. If they, because I popped in late, was there an opportunity to have an updated sort of FAQ? Not that I want to create more work for you or anything like that, but maybe just some general themes of questions that we can then have a read through very quickly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah.
That's such a good question. I'm going to actually just copy and paste from the website. Oh God, that's really awful in the chat. Just a whole massive block of text. I'm so sorry. Let me just put the link to the page as well. So again, we as a team, and I'll talk about the advisory panel as well, actually, because that'll be useful. So as a team putting this event together, we kind of ummed and ahed over being really prescriptive with examples of ideas, because sometimes for people that's really useful. And sometimes it's like, well, none of my ideas chime with this, so therefore this isn't for me. So it's like, it can either turn you onto the thing or it can turn you off it. So anyway, there is a list of kind of questions, and take what you want from that, propose something different. And I will talk as well about who is essentially deciding on the 12 paid for call outs. So we have this amazing, and this is often how we work at London Arts and Health, we have this incredible advisory panel who are being remunerated firstly. Hang on, let me just get the information up so I'm not kind of misnaming anyone. So the advisory panel are colleagues in our network at London Arts and Health, who have a variety of different experiences of the sector. They are remunerated, so it's paid work for them, and they are helping us shape the conference and the call out. So they've done things like look at the copy, look at the kind of tone of voice, look at the language, and also really practically helping us to think through, within the realms of the budget and the capacity of the team, like how we make this event as equitable as possible. So the advisory panel consists of Gay Palmer, who's a social prescriber link worker lead in Southwark, Cedric Wilby, who works with Southwark Culture, Health and Wellbeing Partnership, and is a kind of community trustee in Southwark. Rebecca Manson-Jones has long COVID and is the artistic director of Spare Tire Theatre, and is also a wheelchair user. And Mairead Ruan has lived experience of OCD. She works at Rosetta Live, and she's also part of the Lens, the Lived Experience Network. She's one of the kind of advocates for London. So they're all Londoners, what does that even mean? They have all a variety of different kind of experiences, and they will be essentially deciding on the call out. So we will have a kind of scoring criteria, which is pretty standard, I think, when you get lots of applications to something, and they'll be looking to balance the call out to really think through their own lived experience, their own lens, thinking through they're just an incredible panel. So like, whose voices are missing, like, and also like where we're over indexing, where we're under indexing, just making sure that those first 12 provocations are really balanced and representative of the whole kind of spectre of creative health. So hopefully that's kind of useful to know. Great, thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm just catching up on the Lens. I hadn't.
Oh yes,
yeah.
They are really, so they're kind of hubbed under the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance, and they were one of the recommendations from the 2017 APPG report. Do let me know if you want an introduction. Like, they're a very brilliant group of people. Yeah,
fantastic. No, it's that's another coffee conversation, but
I think I have like lots of new people to have coffee with, which is very exciting. So yeah, I'm going to kind of maybe start bringing the session to an end, I'm just going to pop my email address in the chat box. So if you have a specific question for me, also if you would like to know more about LAR, like we are here to support the sector. We do like 26 million different things that are often not very like obvious from just looking at our website, but we are really, really good at cups of tea and like connecting you, supporting like the sector. We also have a hot desking space and an office in St Margaret's House in Tower Hamlets, which is available at an incredibly cheap rate, or if like that's a problem, for free to our members. So also, you know, we have some kind of really good practical space if people need that, require that. And yeah, I'm always open to meeting and sharing, and like that's how we thrive as a sector, right? So please just drop me a line. If there aren't any more questions, I'll bring the session to a close. I will gift you back 10 minutes. Go and enjoy a coffee.
Thanks very much. That's been great. Thanks.
You're welcome. And also, you know, please apply and share. But if you're not chosen, come and attend the event. It's going to be like lots of tickets on sale. It's for free. Just come and like, you know, enjoy the day and like make those connections and participate in the conversations. We would love to see you there. Thank you so much, everybody.
Definitely. Thanks very much.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.